All right, folks, we're live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have I wanted to do a little freebie here for the folks out there. Seems to be some concerns about a recession looming in the background, especially where I live here in Vermont, where we are seeing, almost a 20% increase in property taxes. Healthcare costs have gone up 16%. We're looking at an outrageous new tax on fuel, making it hard for businesses to survive. So I'm Dan Feliciano. A little background about me. I was a strategy and change consultant, an IBM GE at IBM. I was a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt at GE. So I have quite a bit of experience working with distressed businesses and small businesses in particular. Actually, the majority of my work has been with larger companies, but the concepts we're going to talk about are relevant to small businesses as well. I'm not sure how many of you are worried about a looming recession, but I'm going to give you some tips and techniques that you can use immediately, regardless if a recession is coming or not, to survive, whatever it is that we have coming down the pipeline for us. So let's get into this presentation, which is a presentation I actually created for Vermonters when the pandemic hit. And I said, holy cow, the pandemic is here. What can we do to help these businesses survive? What can I do to help these businesses prepare themselves? And this is a presentation that I had created, and it's still applicable today for businesses that are in a tough position or potentially facing a tough position going forward. So it's small business tactics or business tactics to survive a recession. And I broke it out into three, and we're not going to go through the whole presentation. I broke this out into three small things that we can do or you can do as a business owner to ensure you're more viable here in the future. A little bit of background out on me. I own OpEx90. Right, I have over 30 years process improvement, business transformation. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dan Feliciano on LinkedIn. I have expertise in Lean and Six Sigma. I've worked in almost every public sector, private sector industry that exists. Right now, I have a partnership with the Thayer School of Engineering doing Lean Six Sigma training and certification. So that's a little bit about me. I've literally had the fortunate opportunity to work all over the world, helping businesses grow, helping distressed businesses, doing strategic analysis. I love doing strategy. And if you followed my previous videos, I have heartburn with people saying they're data driven, they're strategic thinkers, they're complex problem solvers. Take a look at my other videos, and you'll see I have ways that we can dispel some of those rumors and myths. So I'm going to start with some assumptions here. Your business is distressed, right? Uh, your business may be experiencing cash flow issues, especially with all the new taxes, fees, labor costs. Let's be honest here. Labor costs have gone through the roof. The materials have gone through the roof. Cost transportation has gone through the roof. Taxes have gone through the roof, right? The only thing that hasn't gone through the roof are your profits and your margins, right? You may need some cash. I'm talking about showing you some quick techniques that you can use to improve that position that you're in. And again, keep in mind, I did a whole thing on strategy and strategic planning. I even have a chat GPT strategy bot, it's called, that does a strategic analysis, and it includes a pestle analysis. What kinds of regulations and things like that are going to affect your business, right? Your planning horizon is, maybe from week to week, if not daily, especially now with, I happen to believe, regardless of what you hear on the news, there's going to be some sort of recession around the corner. You may not believe that, but nonetheless, this is going to help you out. If you're a consultant, pay particular attention because I know so many consultants out there that have no clue on strategy, no clue on how to marry operations and finance. And that's what I'm going to try to do for you. Okay. Um, Here, ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're going to improve cash flow, reduce costs, increase your productivity, and understand some other things that go associated with it. I am not going to teach how to read the financial statements. What we know in the industry today are very few people can go from operations and do the crosswalk to the financial statements. How are you going to affect the balance sheet? How are you going to affect cash flow statement? How are you going to affect the profit and loss statement? And subsequently, there's very few people in finance that can do the opposite, saying, "Oh, here are our metrics. Here are the operational things that affected us," right? A lot of people will tell you they can do that. But as you know, I'm the guy with questions. I have a handful of questions that can actually point out the meme strategist from the actual strategist, if you will. So this is not a long-term strategic plan. What we're looking at is getting your house in order, right? This is not a Lean Six Sigma strategy at all. So this is not a Lean Six Sigma strategy that we're looking at here, and it's not legal or financial advice. This is just some quick, easy things you can do to improve your viability. Now, how many of you are worried about the cost of labor? How many of you are worried about the cost of transportation? How many of you are worried about the increase in taxes? How many of you are worried about raw materials? I mean, it seems like things all over the planet have gone crazy. First things first, what a lot of people don't understand and realize, there's this thing called the cash conversion cycle, right? And we can break this out into two components. This is how businesses take a sale and turn it into moolah, right? We're talking about turning it into moolah. And this isn't from the book of Dan. This is out there. You can actually research this on your own. So we can split a business into, we can bifurcate it into two sections. Inquiry to order. That's from when a customer inquires about our project to when they place an order. And bigger companies have teams of folks figuring out how do we increase that sales conversion and how do we get those orders more quickly, right? This is about marketing. Now, mind you, if you are a distressed business and you're in a cash and you're facing cash issues, it takes a long time for a sale to complete, get fulfilled, get invoiced, and get paid and drop your bottom line. The second component is you have inquiry to order, order to cash, or order to remittance. We're not just interested in fulfilling the order. A lot of lean folks will say, "Hey, I delivered it on time and full." We're not talking about. I want to know from when the order is received to when the cash hits the bank. Right? Cash flow is what kills most businesses, and that's what we need to be interested in. So this cash conversion cycle is important to us in understanding, right? We can increase sales, right? But it takes time for those sales to actually turn into paid orders. And also, a sale, there's taxes, there's cost of goods sold, there's all these overhead expenditures that get wiped that get taken off the top. A very small portion of that actually makes it to the bottom line. However, if we focus on our operations, that's going to be a dollar for dollar savings. And I'm not going to get into a whole financial operation conversation here. So the cash conversion cycle is not only applies doesn't only apply to manufacturers, but it also applies to us in the service industries, right? We have a sale, that sale turns into an order. We need to fulfill that order. We need an invoice for that order, and we need to get paid for it. That's your cash conversion cycle, and that takes time. But let's look at some of these financial drivers. So people then say, "Oh, Dan, what are we really going to focus in on?" I happen to love finance. I happen to love money. I happen to love all these operational things. Note the two areas here that I think we need to be most concerned about. If we're facing lean times, right, we need to focus on cost management or our cost of goods sold and our working capital management. When we talk about working capital management, we're talking about inventory, right? How much money do we have wasted sitting in inventory that can become stolen, that can become obsolete, that can become damaged, right? We have money waiting there to be we have items waiting there to be sold, right? We have accounts receivables. How much money do we have out there that's owed to us, right? You often hear people say, "Oh, we need to figure out how to ship more quickly. We need to ship and get paid more quickly," not one or the other. And then, of course, we have accounts payable, right? So that is what we look at as working capital management as levers that we can maneuver. Now we have capacity utilization in there, right? How do we manage our capacity? Many manufacturers in particular, especially up here in New England, I'm in Vermont, right, where they just can't stop taxing the heck out of us, right? Um, Many manufacturers and even service businesses are having a hard time finding staff, right? And staff wants, exorbitant amounts of money to hire entry level staff. So we have to figure out how can we produce that product and service. I'm telling you, AI and automation is here, but it's not going to be an easy, quick win, especially for small businesses. So, what are some of the most immediate things that we can do if we have to hone in and we're facing this issue where we believe a recession's coming? What are some things we can do today, not tomorrow, folks? What can we do today to start thinking about how we can survive this or get ahead of that curve? The first one is, of course, financial. We're going to have four goals there. We're going to update and validate our financial statements. If you're a small business owner, you know your books are probably crap, right? You need to get those books taken care of. We need to make sure things are categorized appropriately so we can understand our true costs and where those costs are going. We need to improve our cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. How can we improve our cash flow or our working capital? We need to have an emphasis on that. We need to be prepared to apply for a loan or a grant, right? Remember, I made this during the COVID where government was giving away money to anybody, and it seemed like all the crooks and politicians got the money, if you will, right? So you need to be prepared to go to apply for a loan and grant, which means you have to have your financials in good play, in a good situation. We need to understand what our working capital looks like and get rid of that last one. There's no more PPP funds, right? All the shysters already got that. There was tons of fraud associated with it. There's no more money coming to you. There's no white horses. There's no one coming in shining armor to save you. We have to do this ourselves. So get your financials validated, appropriately categorized so you can analyze them better. And we're going to focus on cash flow. Now, what's the second thing we should worry about? Orders, right? Especially if you're a manufacturer. We need to validate all those production orders. If you have no money, right? It takes money to produce an order and product and ship that product. You want to validate those orders and make sure they're still valid and they're coming in and that those customers can pay you. You don't want to get stiffed. Remember, we're talking about cash flow and working capital. What's working capital again? Work with me, people. Inventory, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. Not that hard. So we need to make sure that the orders we have are valid and you're not going to get freaking stiffed. A lot of people got stiffed. Orders were placed and they couldn't get paid. They delivered and shipped the product. And I know lots of folks that took it on the chin. So think about that again. And then here our production, right? Think about what our production is going to look like. If the cost of raw materials have gone through the roof, the cost of transportation and the reliability of transportation stinks. We need to make sure that our production schedules are right. So we have the right orders by the right customers, so we can have the right materials, so we can produce the product, sell the product, invoice for that product, and get paid, right? And then we need to look at our capacity. Can we actually produce to the schedule that we have and that our customers are requiring for us? During COVID, I saw a lot of people take advances and saying, "Yep, I'm gonna pay me a bonus right now. We're gonna pay a premium. We're gonna get you your product on time." They didn't have the capacity to fulfill those orders and ended up being penalized. So we need to take a look at that as well. And then, of course, logistics. Are you going to get your project? Are you gonna get your product there? Logistics, even before COVID, logistics was a disaster, right? We couldn't get trucks. We we couldn't get reliable transportation to move our products in and out. The trucking companies were being finicky. They weren't going to states or locations where they didn't weren't guaranteed a full load in and a full load out. And then, of course, we need to update our cash flow again. So these are the things you need to focus in immediately if you think there's going to be a recession coming. What are your thoughts, folks? Come on. So when we're talking about the financial, what do we really what are the questions we're asking? Do I have full and financial do I have full and financial control of the cash? Do Are you managing your cash appropriately? Small businesses go under because they run out of cash, right? There's so many people that have worked in big corporations and things like that. Cash flow is irrelevant to them unless you're an executive in management. But as a smaller business owner, you need to be on top of your cash flow because that's what's going to break you. So if we're on top of our cash flow, we guaranteed our orders. We know our customers are going to pay us. We know we can produce and get the product there. Then we can invoice and get paid. We're looking pretty good. Do I need to immediately freeze all expenditures? These are questions you need to ask yourself. What do I freeze? Should I freeze all expenditures? Those nice little trips we were going to take, those conferences we were going to, are those really going to pay off and are they really urgent? If you're facing a situation, you think you're going into a recession and you think you might have cash problems, you need to think about those expenditures, right? A lot of those things are junkets that you're going on. Let's be, especially now, summertime's coming. Hey, we have a tax write off. We're going to that conference in Orlando. Well, nothing's free, right? Especially if it's coming from your business. Do I have control of my accounts payable? Can I really control who am I gonna pay and who am I not going to pay? If you're not in this position, great. If you're in the public sector, you don't have to worry about this, or if you work for a big corporation, you're probably immune to understanding these numbers. But if you're a smaller business owner, you need to figure out who am I paying, who am I not paying? Do I have money to pay my taxes? This one's a beautiful one here. Hey, how many of you, especially small business owners, have not paid your taxes? You need to make sure you pay your taxes. Otherwise, you're not getting a loan. Otherwise, you're going to be in very deep trouble. We know that the government and the IRS in particular has hired thousands of people to go out and collect monies from you. And they're going to do so, starting with the bigger companies, but they're going to come after the small business owners as well. Guaranteed you. And your states are gonna come after you in forms of taxes, they're increasing. So, not only do I pay my taxes, what about all these new taxes? In Vermont, there's a slew of new outrageous taxes that are coming in. Have you worked those into your books? Because I know you probably you can't reduce the price of goods sold, right? Government doesn't care, right? But as an employer or as an employee or as a producer, can you raise your prices to pay for these new taxes? I would venture not. Not if you have labor costs going up, not if you're paying for new health benefits, benefit costs have gone up, property taxes have gone up, gotta be careful there. Do you have a cash management system? Are you tracking your cash flow day in and day out? We need to make sure we can do that. Have you analyzed your accounts receivable? Do you know who owes you money? What are you doing to collect that money, right? Are you gonna hire some sort of Goomba to go out there and get it for you? Do you have to offer some sort of incentives for early payment, right? You're basically discounting your product. With everything else going on, you may have to incentivize your customers by giving them a discount for quick payment, especially if you're going to have a cash flow problem. I'm assuming you're going into a recession. You probably work for a smaller company or own a smaller company, and these things are of concern for you. If you're in the government, you have no problems, right? They're just going to print money and pay your checks. Do you have a realistic approach to accounts receivable and understanding your cash? And are you communicating with your suppliers, right? What kind of deals are you getting here? So again, if you believe you're going into if we're going into financial recession, you have to have a good understanding of your finances. Your books need to be in order. You have to have a good understanding of your cash on hand. You need to make sure you understand who you're paying, who you're not paying, and who's paying you and not paying you, right? And then you need to make sure you're paying your taxes, right? Because they're coming after you regardless. They don't care. Um, we're not going to talk about this. I in a former presentation, I went into a little explanation of the financial statements and balance sheets and how we can affect those balance sheets. We're just gonna cruise through that. If someone wanted to talk about this, they can reach out to me privately, and we can talk about how to read financial statements, right? How to read them like a turnaround guy would read them, right? Not like just some like, oh, I can see these things. Let's talk about the big three components of cash management, right? Accounts receivable, which is also working capital, right? Accounts receivable. How much money is owed to me? Accounts payable. Who do I owe money to? And inventory, which is horrible. We have all this inventory that we may be carrying, this finished good product that we couldn't sold, right? It's on that shelf, hopefully not being stolen or damaged, right? Or not becoming obsolete. We need to figure out, you know, what can we do with these things if we have to increase our cash, right? Increase our position. So, when we think about the cash conversion cycle, what we're actually saying is how long does it take from when that order comes in? We have an order coming in to when the cash is in our bank. You know, that is really what matters. And we can shorten up or try to shorten up those time frames, but that takes some work and effort. Right. So now we have to figure out what do we do with our current situation? Because remember, I said this isn't a long-term strategy. We're focusing on short-term issue here. Cash management, when we talk about that, we're saying, how can we forecast, collect, disperse, invest for our company's needs, right? So many of you are saying, "Well, I'm not in a company." Well, guess what? You probably, unless you're in the government, right, and you have it on easy street here, you work for a company, and if you work for a small company, you need to be diligent. You can help your business stay viable. I know some people that are like think they're immune to a recession. They think they're immune to AI. They think they're immune to automation, and I'm just like, where are your heads, right? They think they're immune to taxes for crying out loud. So we need to understand how long it's actually taken us to collect that cash. But my emphasis right now isn't on getting new sales and orders. Remember, that takes time to get that sales, get that order, produce it, ship it, invoice it, and get that money applied. And by the time you take out all the costs associated with it, only a small portion that's actually going to hit your bank account. You have monies out there that you can immediately collect in terms of accounts payable. I mean, accounts receivable. You have inventory. Maybe we can liquidate some of that inventory that's sitting there doing nothing. And then, unfortunately, you might have to slow down your accounts payable. Talk to your folks, your suppliers. Hey, look, we're in a tough situation. We need to do something differently here. So the first thing we need to do in our financial goal is we're honed in on improving our cash flows. Update your financial situation, right? We need to make sure our books are accurate. I cannot tell you how many times I went into an organization and the books were a mess, right? The things were miscategorized. And sometimes I think it's intentional because they think they're going to hide stuff from the IRS or something like that. But if you don't have a set of books that you can use to manage and analyze, you're kind of screwed. Improve our cash flow and our cash on hand. What I would do is I would get all my people that owe me money, all the people I owe money to, put it in a spreadsheet. I would see who's the oldest customer out there, and I'd start dialing for my dollars. Where is my money? Listen, we're having this situation here. How can we get paid? And then you're going to have to do the same thing with probably your accounts payable. Hopefully not. And then, of course, you need to have some sort of daily cash report. If we think we're going into a recession, like so many people do, we need to manage that cash flow day in and day out more so than we have in the past. If you don't understand how much cash you have on hand right now, mm, and remember, taxes are going up, cost of goods are going up, cost of labor is going up, transportation costs are going up. You need to have a good understanding of your projected financial costs, cash on hand, to make sure you can keep up with that demand. Now, here's some simple techniques you can do. I have all these workbooks and worksheets and databases, right? But look at this here. This isn't complicated, folks. You can do this. Create a simple accounts receivable report. Sure, it's in your computer systems and stuff like that. But there's nothing better than having a spreadsheet on your desk that you're looking at, that you keep open to haunt you, saying, "Holy cow, ABC owes me 7 grand, and it's 272 days past due," right? And then who do I owe money to? Oh my God, I owe money to Acme. I'm 63 days behind, and they're a priority. So this is, it may give you a little angst right now, but you have to step back and understand really what's going on and get a firm grip on the reality of of your business and situation. Now, if you're an employee and you think you're immune to all this and you don't have to help, great. But everyone has some skin in the game. And then, of course, we probably want to have this daily cash management system coming in, especially if you think we're going to go into a recession and times are going to get tough. We want to know our planned receipts, how much cash we have on hand, our planned payouts, the actual amount we paid out, and our running cash gain or loss. Now you might say, "Dan, this is crazy, right? This is too much." Hey, if we want to stay in business, which we're not guaranteed, the only thing that's guaranteed is you're going to pay taxes. The right to stay in business, that's not guaranteed, right? The right to employment, yeah, that's not guaranteed either. We need to all have skin in the game to make sure our businesses are viable so we can stay employed. We need to make sure our businesses are viable so we can have our employees. We need to stay viable so that we can ensure we meet our customers' needs. The next thing we need to do is this cash on hand. Do we know all our expenses, where they're going, what we can cut? What we can cut, where we can cut, and then start thinking again about how we can improve our cash flow. There are all sorts of things that we can do, right? You might have prepaid expenses. You forgot that you paid for all this in advance. You might want to recoup some of that money. You might have subsidize if your earnings have gone down, maybe you can adjust your healthcare costs. I know that, we've gone to this crazy healthcare system and and you really don't know what anything costs anymore and what the subsidies are. But if you're seeing a significant tank, if your cash and your biz profits have tanked considerably, you might have an ability to go back and renegotiate your healthcare costs, right? Um, what else can we do here? Sell equipment and obsolete inventory. Get rid of the stuff you don't need. We need to have cash on hand. That's our lifeblood. Reduce wages, hours of employees. This is a tough one, especially right now. And the only reason it's tough right now is because labor is so hard to come by and labor has gotten so expensive. If you're fully staffed, great. You may have to look at reducing wages and hours and employees and taking a look at how to do that. And remember, you know, a lot of companies say, "Oh, we never lay off anybody." Well, companies are doing buyouts left and right, including Toyota, right? People say, "Oh, Toyota never lays." They're doing great buybacks, which are basically layoffs, right? Factor your receivables, right? You might have to sell off your receivables. If you're looking at your receivables and they're aging and they're aging, you might have to turn those receivables over to another company. And they're going to take a portion of it, but at least you might get something rather than nothing. So you might want to factor those receivables, consignment of inventory, customer deposits. You may require customer deposits going forward. Remember, in the beginning, I said we need to validate our customers' orders. We need to validate they can pay us. Maybe it's time to have those customers now drop a deposit. Think about subleasing, a sale leaseback. In many areas, the real estate market is hot. You may have bought a property or your office, your building that you're operating on. It might be worth a lot more money than it is now. You might want to sell that building get the capital gains, you're gonna pay taxes on it, but, then lease it back for a much lower cost. At least you're gonna have that cash on hand, and then maybe, look for outside investors to help you. We're gonna blow by this one here. You might have to be prepared. You have to have your books in order, right? You have to make sure your cash flow is complete, and then maybe you have to go out and apply for a loan or some sort of grant. So don't take this off the table, but you need to make sure your business books are ready, that your books are loan ready, right? Your books are tax ready to get that actual loan. So again, here's what we were talking about. In the nearer term, update our financial systems and our reports, improve our cash flow and cash on hand, update our cash flow statement, create a daily cash flow management system, and then think about start talking to the banks and stuff like that, and thinking about what it is that you're actually going to be doing and how you're going to possibly apply for a loan. In a longer term situation, you might have to you may have to go back and look at your books. If your books are in order, right? And identify the low margin products and things like that, and start recategorizing and reevaluating the products and services that you make. And then, of course, this becomes a tough one. There's customers you're going to have to cut loose, right? So, many organizations use this thing called the Net Promoter Score on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being very likely. How likely would you recommend this to a friend or family member? Well, that's a measure of customer loyalty. But there's a second aspect of NPS that most people don't realize. It's how profitable are these customers? Do we make money off of them? If you have a very happy customer, you're not making any money off of them, they're costing you money. What good is it doing you? So here we go. You need to call your bookkeeper or accountant right now and tell them how much you love them, and say, "Hey, we need to get this taken care of, right? We need to stop the hemorrhaging. How do I get good control of my money? How can I freeze? Should I freeze my expenditures? How do I control my accounts payable, right? I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. You may have to slip on those accounts of payable, right? Um, do you have your taxes in place, right? Do I have a cash flow system in place, right? So again, I reiterate it, these simple questions that you need to ask yourself right now if you're concerned about your business going into the future. Again, taxes are going up, cost of raw materials are going up, cost of labor is going up, right? Benefits for employees, you're going to get dinged with new taxes on that. Um, Transportation costs are going up. So what do? We need to be ahead of this curve, if you will. Also, where can we find that hidden cash? Again, I created a list of questions here for you. Where can I get cash out of my inventory? Can I sell it? Can I do a sale leaseback? Can I get rid of equipment? Right? Um, can I scale down my facilities and sublet? It's time to be creative. And this little list right here, take a screenshot in conjunction with that previous list, are ways that you can immediately start thinking about raising money and having capital and cash flow to survive this recession. Next thing, of course, orders. We all we all have orders that we need to fulfill, right? Customers are asking and submitting orders to you. We need to make sure, if you think things are getting shaky, is this order still valid, right? We need to make sure that order is valid and that the customer can pay you. Otherwise, you're going to have to think differently, right? Maybe you don't take that order because remember, it takes time and money. You made a sale, you have an order, you need to do the work to produce the product and service. You need to ship the product and service. When it's in the customer's hands, you get the invoice, and then you hope to God they're going to pay you. That all takes time. So we need to make sure these customer orders are valid and they're not canceling, right? You're producing all this product, and then they're like, cancel the order. We're out of money. There's nothing we can do. And you're left holding this bag of goods, and maybe you can put it into inventory. You don't want to put it in inventory because it's money. It's money already It's just money sitting there waiting for something to be done with it. Does your production or service schedule reflect the latest changes? Customers are coming and going, right? The same problems you're facing, your customers are facing. So, do we have an accurate schedule so that we're producing the right product at the right time, at the right cost for the right customer so we can get paid, right? And then customers, can they take delivery of their orders? One of the things we're seeing quite a bit is customers are having a hard time getting their orders, the shipment, the shipping. Because I did a project for this big pharma company, and they couldn't get transportation. They couldn't get their products shipped out anywhere. So what they were actually having to do was FedEx everything. Their shipping costs went through the roof. And then, can the customers pay for my order? Very important, right? But we need to step back and think about these things. We can't sit home and put our heads in the sand. So we need to validate those orders or in additions. We need to make sure those orders are in the right production schedule that we can get paid. Maybe we're taking a deposit for that order. Is it still valid? Is the quantity right? Is the shipment date right? Because remember, if you're in like in a manufacturing environment, you may not get to invoice until that you can't invoice until the customer gets that product. You gotta produce the product, you gotta ship the product. When the customer takes possession of the product, they invoice it and hope to God they pay you. And then validate that they can actually get the product and take possession of it. Last thing you wanna do is ship a product and they say, "Oh, yeah, turn it back. We don't need it. We're not going to use it." So, and then validate their ability to pay. You may have to start checking the credit worthiness of your customers. You may have to start asking for a deposit, right? You may have to offer an early discount for payment. So these are things that you need to start thinking about and potentially doing right now. So what do we have? So again, we're doing a recap here. Do I have a correct production schedule? Do I have the raw materials to produce that product or service? Right? If we're having transportation problems, your suppliers may be having problems. You may not be able to get those raw materials, or it's going to cost you through the nose to get them. Do I have the money to pay for those raw materials? The same thing you're doing to your customers are probably going to be done to you, especially if everyone starts getting all squirrely about what's happening in the economy. Do I have the staff to produce the product or service, right? Is that staff going to be around? I did a project one time in Mexico, and it was a 3 shift operation. I come in one morning, I'm like, "What the hell happened last night?" Nothing got done. The whole crew left. The whole crew quit, right? So, do we have the staff to produce that product or service, right? Do you have an ability to get the product there guaranteed? Transportation before COVID hit, transportation was a problem, and having reliable raw materials getting to you at a reasonable price. It After COVID, it got worse, and it's still bad. And this isn't something that COVID created. It's been a problem for a while. And then, do I have the staff to issue invoices, right? We got to invoice promptly, right? So we can get paid promptly. We can't let those invoices go. So again, here are some of the things we need to do. Update that production schedule. And again, I created a bullet list here for you. Things you should probably be doing right away, validating the customer orders and they're scheduled appropriately, making sure you can get those raw materials and that you have them on hand and you have the ability to pay. Make sure you have the equipment and staff to produce and deliver that product or service, right? Make sure the orders, you have them appropriately staged and ready to go. You might wanna create a daily production system, some sort of daily management system to go off that cash flow system, so you know what orders came in, what orders went out, when are we going to invoice. You're going to have to manage this like you've never managed in your life before. Make sure you have good outbound logistics. I tell you, there's parts of the country where the transportation companies are saying, I'm not taking raw materials to that place unless I'm guaranteed a full truckload out, right? So truckers are getting paid by the truckload. They're not gonna bring product to a location if they only have a half a trailer full of product and they're only getting a half a trailer out, right? So you need to make sure that you have a reliable delivery system and mechanism getting there because FedEx isn't the best way to go. It's going to cost you through the nose. Ensure your invoices are sent properly. Again, we want to convert quickly to cash, right? We're talking about the cash conversion cycle. You don't hear a lot of people talk about it, right? Inquiry to order, that's your marketing and sales, time it takes to become an order and the cost. And then you have order to cash in the bank from when we produce the order, ship the product, invoice the product, and get our hands on that nice money so that we can pay our staff appropriately. And then think about the buffers that you may need to put in place there. So these are some of the things, that I think about at night when I'm watching the news and I'm hearing about the labor shortages. I'm hearing about the labor rates that people are expecting. I'm watching these if you live in Vermont, like I do, property taxes are going up. In my area, probably 20%. Last year, healthcare costs went up 16%. They're looking at probably an over 10 cents a gallon increase in fuel prices for transportation costs. Now we have new benefits that are being applied to employees. So the costs are going up like crazy. And if you think we're going into a recession, you're going to figure out how to manage and plan ahead and see what's going on there. We're not going to talk about a daily production or service schedule. This isn't just about manufacture, folks. This is about services as well, how we can satisfy that service schedule. Here's a service report. We're not going to talk about that. I'm not here to teach you right now how to manage your business with the data, right? How to be a real data driven organization. So let's recap here. Three immediate objectives and goals you should have. Improve your cash flow, which is also working capital. Oh, notice I'm missing a closed parentheses there. Be prepared to apply for a loan or grant. Validate your production and service orders. Validate their ability to pay. Validate your production schedule and update your cash flow statement so that you can stay in the game, right? This is this isn't a rookie sport anymore. Things are coming to a head with everything that's going on around us. And here's another way you can think of and look at your business. I'm not here to teach you a finance class right now, nor an operations. You can see I have the finance. I love the finance side. I love the operations side. But that's for another day, another dollar, if you will. But here's what we're looking at doing: our cost management system. We need to make sure we get that under control. More importantly, our working capital, inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Everything we should do should be about getting and preserving cash so that we can be viable in the future. Again, here's an example of a balance sheet where things go. Other questions to ask yourself. Again, I went ahead and created like a little appendix here. I used to do this as I used to go out to local small businesses and do presentations and give these documents out. These are a bunch of questions. So that's what we have there. So these were business tactics that you need to survive if you believe there's an upcoming recession. And I think all of us need to be concerned about it, not only as business owners, but also as employees. So let's recap again. We need to make sure we have our finances in order and our cash flow in order. We need to ensure that our books reflect accurately our cost structure so that we might have to recategorize and get rid of some product lines. We need to ensure that the orders for services or products that we receive are still valid. We need to ensure that the customers can pay us, right? We need to ensure we have the staff to pay it, that we can ship the product. And then, of course, the production side of things. Can we really produce to the schedule that's required for us and ensure that it gets in the customer's hands? So these are just some simple tactics that you can immediately apply to any business to be successful. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Is this a bunch of hogwash? Do you think this is all for nothing? Now, keep in mind, if a recession doesn't come, you're in great shape. You have a good handle on your books. You have a good handle on your orders and who your customers are. You have a good handle on your cash. You have a solid production schedule. you're going to be making money hand over fist. But at a minimum, just do these simple things and help your businesses do these things, and you'll have a better chance of being more viable. Any questions or any thoughts there? Well, this was another reading from a book of Dan, and I hope you found this interesting. I love this kind of stuff. I'm always thinking about strategy. I'm thinking about finance, and I'm thinking about operations. So, whatever they say, like, share, boost, whatever, please do so. Um, by the way, if I love to talk about AI and automation. If you're not in AI and automation, you're crazy. If you haven't paid for a Chat GPT license because your business won't pay for it, your company won't pay for it. You owe it to yourself because you're probably going to be either leverage AI or AI is going to leverage you out of a job. So you need to learn that. But I have this fantastic strategy bot, and that strategy bot is out there in Chat GPT. It does the most complete and thorough strategic analysis. You give it your industry, you give it a location, and it goes out and it does this incredible strategic analysis for you. And it may open your eyes to some blinders that you may have on or some other opportunities that might exist. So that's another thing out there that's free that I created that you can use. I have other videos where I really talk about the new skills that are going to be needed in the age of AI, and that's critical thinking. I know everyone's a critical thinker, right? Everyone thinks they have critical thinking skills, but come on, be real. Complex problem solving. I know. Everyone's a complex problem solver, right? Data literacy is huge. How do we present data? How do I convince people with data and include it in data literacy, statistical thinking? Do I know the stats? Can I talk more than just an average? Data analytics is going to be huge. Everyone's going to be expected to play in that game, right? Innovation. How do we use all this great new technology to innovate and create new products? And strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is another skill that is like the most fluffery skill you'll see on LinkedIn. Everybody's a strategic thinker. But if you watch my previous videos and stuff like that, you see there's a handful of questions I can ask and quickly discern or pick out the people who are strategic or not strategic. So again, this is the world according to Dan, and I hope you found this useful. And I look forward. I'm going to be creating more videos. Help like, share, whatever they say, and feel free to reach out and contact me. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to think and say. I'm always open to push back on this and saying, "Hey, here's what I really think. Hey, let's have a conversation. Let's see what happens, and let's hope we don't have a recession. But if we do, you're ready to go, baby." Right? So, again, have a great weekend. Maybe I'll put something out on Saturday.